Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF Hayomi Maseches GITTEN DAF Mem. We are holding on Lamed Tes Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. The Gemara today will begin with a couple of non-typical methods for releasing an Eved Kanani from his slavery. So the Gemara begins with Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Amar Rabbi Ashi, and ultimately in the name of Rabbi, Amar Rabbi. Eved shenasa es bas chorin b'fnei Rabbi. As we know, an Eved Kanani, a non-Jewish slave, may not marry a bas chorin, an ordinary Jewish woman. He may choose to be involved with a shivcha kananis, but not a bas chorin, an ordinary member of the Jewish community. What happens if an Eved proceeds to marry a bas chorin? Not only that, he does it b'fnei Rabbi, in front of his alleged master, Yotze Lacheres. That is the biggest indication of freedom, that apparently his owner has already released him prior to this incident. How do we know that? It says Rashi on top, Yotze Lacheres, Dilav de Shachrei, if not for the fact that he had already let him go, he would never in the world allow him to do this. The fact that the owner is consenting, is allowing this, is enabling this, tells us that the Eved is not an Eved anymore. He must have already released him before this happened. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan, upon hearing this halacha, which was presented by Rabbi Zera in the name of Rabbi, exclaimed to him, Kol kach yesh biyadcha, you have such a big chidush, such a grand halacha in your hands in the name of Rabbi? However, I have a brisa which seems to go against that. The Chachamim in the following brisa seem to disagree and don't consider this an indication of freedom. The brisa says, here we have the master himself, the owner of the maidservant. He goes ahead and he writes a shtar erusin, which is a shtar kiddushin, which contains the words Hariyat Mikudeshasli, one of the forms, one of the ways to be mekadesh, to engage in isha for marriage. And of course, he may not marry a shivcha. And he writes her the shtar and he gives it to her, indicating engagement for marriage. What happens? That's the biggest raya, the biggest proof that she's no longer his shivcha. Otherwise, he wouldn't proceed with this process. He wouldn't do an isur. The fact that he's offering her marriage indicates to us that he had already released her from slavery, which makes her suitable for him. The Chacham no, it doesn't say anything about anything. Maybe he's proceeding with Isser. So bottom line, in the previous halach, in Rebbe's case, with the Eved who married a Bas Chern in the presence of his owner, according to the Chachamim, we have no raya that he was mishuchrar. Answers the Gemara, no. Perhaps there's no contradiction. Could the Amar Rabba Barav Shila, just as Rabba tells us a bit later regarding the tefillin that the Eved was wearing, where we learned that the mass of the act of wearing tefillin is an indication of freedom, that he had already been freed by his master. So Rabba tells us, tefillin, we're speaking that not that the Eved happened to don tefillin in front of his master, but rather that the master himself facilitated that tefillin. He helped him put on tefillin. And that's a raya that he is no longer an Eved, because it's not a practice that avodim are engaged in. Hachanami here as well, in Rebbe's case, with the Eved going and marrying a Bas Chorin, we're speaking about a similar scenario. Rather than the Eved himself initiating it in the presence of his master, which perhaps doesn't say anything as to his status. Rather, we're speaking Hachanami Kisher Rabbi Hisir Isha. His owner, or his past owner, actually did the shidduch. He was involved in marrying them off. Oh, that says something about the Eved's status. If it wasn't for the fact that the owner had already let him go, which turned him into an ordinary member of the Jewish community, he wouldn't have facilitated this marriage. That's already going a bit far than just observing that marriage. He's actually being involved and assisting in the process. That shows that he was set free. Says the Gemara. Okay, umika midi. How can you suggest that there should be such a situation that la'avdid la'avdli ma'avle isura? You're telling me owner would not, facilitate an isur for his eved. The fact that he's marrying him off is a raya that he's no longer his eved. V'iyu ka'avad isura. But in the case of the shivcha, where the chachamim say that even though the master is approaching her and being makadosh her, no, doesn't say anything about her status. Perhaps she's still a shivcha. Does that make sense? When it's regarding his eved, he wouldn't be involved if it wasn't appropriate. The fact that he's involved is a raya that it's permitted, that he's no longer an eved. But when it comes to his own personal experience, why wouldn't it say the same thing? The fact that he's approaching her is a raya that she's not a shivcha. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. You're right, 100% right. If in fact the master would give her a proper shtar kiddushin, which says Harayat Mekudeshesli, you're my wife, of course it would work. Of course he wouldn't do it if it wouldn't be mutter. Of course she's no longer his shivcha. Of course you already let her go before that. The point of discussion between Rameh and the Chachamim in this price is speaking about a very specific case. He wrote a shtar with the words Harayat Mekudeshesli, right? But he added something. When he handed her the shtar, listen to what he said. The Amalei tells her, Tzi'i boy, v'iskachi boy. You're going to take this shtar from me and use this as your release document, number one, and number two, to become engaged to me. Sort of two for the price of one. He wants to wrap them together. Release and the Kedushin with the same shtar. That's the point of discussion. Rameir Savar. Yesh b'lashon hazeh lashon shichrur. That, yeah, it can work. The words Harayat Mekudeshes Li, not only do they speak about marriage, it also is a declaration of freedom, of release. Basically what he's saying is, you should become available to me and then become mine. So it's sort of a two-step process which can be wrapped together in one. And therefore Rameir considers this shtar as a shtar shichrur as well. But Rabbanan Savri ain't b'lashon hazeh lashon shichrur. They disagree. When you say Harayat Mekudeshes Li, it doesn't say much more than that. You are Mekudesh to me. I can't use that same language to, number one, release you, and number two, make you mine. So bottom line is like this. Without this additive, just approaching the shivcha and giving her a shtar kiddushin, perhaps all would agree that it works. He wouldn't marry her if she was not suitable, if she was usher to him. The fact that he's doing this is a right that she's no longer his shivcha. He was already mishachrer her in the past. That's not what happened here. He's clearly indicating to everybody that she's still his shivcha until this moment. He just wants to use this moment, this act, and this masa kedushin as a two-in-one process. Release and be mekadosh her at the same time. The question is if that can work. If this lashon of kedushin indicates release as well, that's Rameir, or not. That's the chacham. But of course, in the case of the eved, if the eved actually marries in the presence of his former master, we certainly conclude that he must have let him go. Otherwise, he wouldn't allow it. Continues the Gemara. Okay, we made mention of the eved wearing tefillin, and here it comes. Amar Rabbi ben Levi, eved sheniach tefillin v'fnei Rabbi yotze l'chiros. If an eved Kanani puts on a pair of tefillin, something which is not common practice for avodim, he does it in the presence of his master, yotze l'chiros, he can just go free. Why? The fact that his master is allowing it is a raya that he had already released him. Tefillin indicates independence from all human mastery. You are meshabed yourself to Hashem. So that indicates freedom from slavery, from avdus, and therefore allowing that is an indication that, in fact, his master had already released him. Meisve, here comes a kasha on this halacha. Love a heimenu rabbi. Brisa says, if a master borrows money from his eved, or the master appointed the eved as an administrator of his properties, here we go. Or the eved put on tefillin in the presence of his master. Or you ran into shul and got an aliyah, read 3 psukim, betzibur in front of his master. It doesn't mean much. That doesn't serve as an indicator of cherus. So even putting on tefillin doesn't say much about his status. Answers the Gemara, Amar Rabba, Barav Shila, like we said before, there's a big difference between how it happened. If it happened in a way where the rabbi was involved or not involved. Rabbi tefillin. When Rabbi Shimon Levi tells us that an eved who is miniach tefillin goes free, that's when the owner himself helped him put on the tefillin. That's a real raya, that he was mishachrer him already. The Brisa is speaking where the eved himself initiated it. That doesn't say too much about anything. Continues the Gemara. Ki also Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Babel, he quoted Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda lived in Eretz Yisrael. He quoted him as like this: Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Misha Amar B'Shas Misosei. The fellow turns to his kids prior to his death. He turns to his kids and he tells them, "Look, Pliny Shivchasi, this maidservant that we have, Al Yishtabdu L'Lachar Moisi. I don't want you enslaving her after I pass away." So that lashon is like a lashon of shichrur. Al Yishtabdu is basically saying, I'm letting her go. And therefore, Kaifin es hayarshim, v'kaisvin laget shichrur, we force the yarshim to write a get shichrur to complete that process, because we know that, at least according to Rabbi Yechanan, we had this a couple of days ago, if a person is mafkir his eved, he relinquishes ownership of the eved, right? So the financial hold, the financial ownership is now, sort of been let go, but the Isser aspect, or the status-related concepts that apply to the eved or the shivcha, not being able to marry a member of the community, being able to eat truma, all those things, those are sort of the Isser aspect. So to allow the shivcha to marry into the community, you have to give her a get shichrur, and the Yerushim do that. Okay, so according to this Chiddush of Rabbi Yechanan, simply saying to your kids, Pliny Shivchasi Al Yishtabdu Bo. Al Yishtabdu Bo is a lashon of shichrur, of release, of like hefker, and therefore they can no longer enslave her, and they have to release her completely. Amru Lafanav, Rabbi Ambi Rabbi As. So these two Amoraim asked Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi, they addressed Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi, Yata Moedeh Shabonei Avodim. Why are we forcing the Yerushim to release her? Fine. He said, Al Yishtabdu. Don't enslave her. Don't make her work. Give her a vacation. Okay, but it doesn't mean that she's going free. It's not hefker. For instance, if she has any kids going forward, aren't those kids avodim? So why should the Yerushim of this man lose their entitlement to the avodim? So basically, they disagreed with Rabbi Yechanan. Al Yishtabdu just means to say, give her a lifelong vacation. Don't work her. Don't enslave her. But she's still considered a full eved, full shivcha, and her children are avodim. Continues the Gemara. He also, Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, when Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda came from Eretz Yisrael, he had a different version of Rabbi Yechanan. Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Misha Amar B'Shas Misasei Plainis Shivchasi. Kairas ruach asasali. Rabbi Yechanan said like this: if a person, prior to passing away, tells his family, this maidservant that I have, she served me so well. Kairas ruach asasali. I was very pleased with her. Yas asala. Kairas ruach. After I pass away, I want you to do likewise. Reciprocate for her, dedication. So what happens? They have to follow. They have to listen. So, if she wants to go, she wants to be let free, so that's how they have to reciprocate. Right? They have to listen to their father's instructions. My time of why? Mitzvah l'kaim divrei hameis. It's mitzvah to fulfill the wish of the mace. If he says, look, give her what she wants, and that's her wish, so they do that. They let her go. So the Rashba says, what about the Isra of releasing an Eved? So he says, when it's done as an expression of appreciation, of Akaras HaToiv, that's okay. Okay, so we have two sort of versions of Rabbi Yechanan. In the first, Al Yishtabdaba, a man who says Al Yishtabdaba is an indication of freedom, and the Yarshim have to complete the process by giving her a get shichra. In the second version, no, Al Yishtabdaba doesn't mean, it's not like Hefker. Rather, the halacha was, in a case where he says, she was so good to us, reciprocate to her. And if her wish is to be set free, and that's what they do. They are setting her free by their own initiative in fulfillment of their father's wishes because of mitzvah l'kaim divrei hameis. Continues the Gemara. Amar Amema. Amema tells us a chiddush. Hamafkir avdei. If one makes his eved knani hefker, oisoy eved in litakana. So basically, you gave up your monetary rights to the eved. You no longer own him. So now the eved is stuck. He cannot marry anybody. He can't marry a shifcha because he's already partially free. He can't marry an ordinary bas chayrin because he's still partially an eved. Remember, the monetary is separate from the isser. Monetarily, he's not a slave, but in status, he's still considered a slave. My time of why? Why? Gufei loikanile. Look, the owner no longer owns the actual eved. He gave it up. Isur hudikadikabeh. All he has in the eved is the isur aspect. That's still intact. Well, the isur lematzi maknile. The isur can't be transferred. That can't be, transferred and given to the eved to here, take it and go free. It's not something tangible that could be moved around. So this eved is sort of in limbo. He's stuck. Amalei Rav Ashi Amemar. So Rav Ashi disagrees. He tells Amemar, what do you mean? V'amar Ula. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Didn't Ula tell us in the name of Rabbi Yehuda? Back in the Flamates yesterday, a person's mafka the eved, so the eved goes free, but he needs a get shichra. Yeah, the owner can give him a get shichra even to abolish the isra aspect of the avdus. That's number one. Number two, Rabbi Chia Bar Abin Amar Rab told us the same thing back in the Flamat Chesamid Beis. Echad whether he was mafka the eved or magdish the eved, we say yotza lecheres v'tzarach et shichra. So he loses the monetary ownership right there, but then he gives a get shichra to complete the process of release. So you see, you can write a star for Isra as well. Marleisa Mema responded, well, you're misinterpreting. Tzarech, all the Rabbi Yechanan and Rav speak about the eved going free and needing a get shichra. Tzarech means, theoretically, he requires a get shichra because his release wasn't fully executed. The Isra is still maintained. Ve'elat akana, he's really stuck. Nobody can execute that release because nobody can give him a star which simply addresses Isser. Doesn't exist. So I'm sort of reinterpreting all those Gemaras. You can't write a star for Isser, for strictly Isser. Ikad Amri, there was another version of Amemar. Amar Amemar, Hamafkar Avdu Umeis. Oh, so here it's a bit different. He gave up rights to his eved and then he passed away. So when he gave up those rights, he gave it the monetary aspect. Right? No longer monetarily owns the eved, but then he passed away. So what happens now? He's not around to write a star. Maybe if he would be around, he can write a star even for the Isser. But when he passes away, oh, you saw your eved in the takana. That eved right now is stuck. My time of why? Because the Yarshim have received nothing. Remember, the guf, the actual eved, the financial component of the eved, the owner no longer had. He gave that up through the hefka. Yisur the ikagabe. Only thing he had left with him was the Isra aspect of the eved. Yisur lebrei leimaris. When he passes away, Isra is not something you can pass on to your children. It's not an asset, not a possession. It's not ownership. So the kids can't do anything. They are not related to this eved. So you're stuck. Amar le Rav Ashi la Meimar. So Rav Ashi turns to Meimar. V'hoki aser of dimi Amar Rabbi Yehuda. He had a different kasha now. You're telling me that Hefker and then Misa disrupts the system. What about the halacha we had before of dimi named Rabbi Yehuda, this fellow who declared b'shas misasai, right? Plain shiv chasi, remember? Plain shiv chasi, al yishtabdeba, don't enslave her. And we said that according to Rav Dimi and Rabbi Yehuda, they have to follow suit. She's sort of hefker now. He gave up his monetary, ownership there, and they have to complete the process by giving her a get shikhr. We're talking about hefker, mace, and then the Yershin take over. So you see, it works. So the Gemara says, Amemah responds, Rav Dimi to Usu. No, remember, Rav Dimi was a mistake. That whole version was inaccurate. Because remember the kasha we had, Rami Ravasi Estra Birchnan, how does it work? And he sort of changed. So that halach is inaccurate. Amar lei, but no, so Rav Ashi responds to a meimar. My tu'usa. In which way is there a mistake in that halacha? Nothing to do with our discussion. The problem there was a totally different problem. Remember, their kasha was, Rav Asi asked on that halacha as follows. Simply saying the words al yishtabdu ba, simply instructing his kids to stop, working with her, is not a lashon shikhr. Give her a vacation. That's all it meant. Delay umbra lashon shikhr. He didn't say lashon of shikhr. That's the only problem. It's a technical problem, semantics problem. Ha'amra lashon shikhr. But if he would have said it properly, he would have said, you're going free. No, Chanami, everybody would agree it works. Right? Even though he gave up all his monetary rights. And then he dies, the kids can take over and write the shtar to release her from her Isser status. So it is a good kasha on you, Ameimar, who tells us that it doesn't work. Amalai, so Ameimar responds, Anok the Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda Sfirli. I had a different version of Rabbi Yehuda. Remember, we had Rabbi Dimi's version of Rabbi Yehuda, which we just discussed, and we had the other version. Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda quotes Rabbi Yehuda in a totally different circumstance. That he was speaking about a case where the father tells them, she was such a good servant, and I want you to reciprocate, and he's sort of instructing them to, fulfill her wishes. It turns out she wishes to go free, they have to follow suit. So it's their initiative. They're doing it totally from beginning to end. He's just telling them, listen, go ask what she needs, and whatever she wants, you'll do. And they go release her. So it's not like he gave up anything and, there's something missing in the ownership. No. He tells them, look, be good boys. After I pass away, I want you to be nice to her. And if that means letting her go, that's what they do. So it doesn't relate to our discussion here, where he was mafkir and then he died. That's a totally different story. And perhaps in this case, says Ameimar, it doesn't work. Why? Because once again, he gave up the mammon, and when he passed away, the Isser that's remaining doesn't go over to the kids. It's not something tangible that you can transfer, so they can't deal with that. They can't be meshacher. They can't write a shtar addressing that aspect. Says the Gemara, who discarded the Avdei? So there was a sort of a district. Discard is almost sounds like district, where there lived Avadim Knanim that were owned by Israel. So the owners sold the Avadim to non-Jews. The halacha is, we're going to learn it later in Daf Mem Gimel, Hamoicher Avdei Leved Gechavim, because he can't do mitzvahs there, he goes free. Kolomar Vasa Basroi. So the second owners, the current non-Jewish owners, passed away. Also, Kamed Ravina. So the Avadim approached Ravina so that he can allow them to marry Bnei Yisrael. It turns out that the first original Jewish owners passed away as well. They left over, there were kids left behind. Amar Luz Ravina tells the Avadim, Zilu, go, Ahadru Abnei Marvasa Kamai. Go back to the kids of your former Jewish owners. And they'll compose for you a shtarei cherus, release documents, because although you're entitled to go free, that's in terms of the monetary aspect of cherus, of avdus. But you're still usher, you still have a status of an eved until you get shichra from the original owner or their kids. Amuli Rabban Ravina, 1 second, say the Rabban to Ravina. Amar Amemar, don't we know that Amemar says you can't do it, it's too late. Hamafker Avdo Yemes, a person makes his eved hefker, he gives up the mamain aspect of his eved, umes, and then he passes away, that's it, show's over. Oisa eved, and the eved is stuck, he's in limbo. Could the Yarshim have nothing to speak of? They have no ownership to write a get on. Amar Lahu, so we had the same back and forth. Amar Lahu, so he tells him, no, I know Karav Dimi Sphirali. I hold like Rav Dimi, who who asked, who actually changed the halacha, right? He said that Rav Dimi was the first version of Rabbi Yehuda, that if the father tells the kids al yishtab deba, leave her alone, he's sort of giving up his rights. It's like hefker, and still the halacha is that when he passes away, the kids can write a shtar. Same over here. Amrlu anok Rav Dimi svirli. Amrle, so the chacham told Ravina, Rav Dimi teusi, but that's a mistake. Remember we had a kasha on that. Amrlu, he tells them, my teusa. Yeah, what was the mistake? It was a technical semantics mistake, not a halachic. It wasn't a halachic discrepancy. The problem is loy amr b'loshen shichra, because he didn't state outright that he's releasing her. He just says, Al yishtab the bus. Maybe it means, give her a vacation. But if he would have said so outright, ha'amr b'loshen shichra, if he would have released the shifcha, clearly, given up his rights, ha'chanami, of course it would work. Even if he passes away, the kids can write a shtar shichra to release her completely from the Isser. The same in our case. As long as the original owners left over some children, these are avadim, can go back to those children for a shtar shichra v'hilchsek ravina, and that's how we paskin that even the Isser component of an eved can be passed on to the kids, birusha, which enables them to write a shtar shichra to release them completely even from the Isser. That's the conclusion. Continues the Gemara. How avda the beitrei? There was an eved who was owned by two people. Kam chad minayu v'shachrei lepalgei. One of the partners released the eved, meaning he gave up his part of the eved. So now the eved is sort of 50-50. Half of eved, half non-eved. In which case he's in limbo. He can't marry a shifcha because he's a half non-eved. He can't marry an ordinary isha, a bas Yisrael, a bas Chayrim, because he's a half eved. Amar idach, so the other remaining owner says like this: Hashta shami bi rabbanon. You know what's going to happen? The Rabbanon are going to hear about the story that I'm holding on to a half and half eved. They're going to pull him away from me. I'm going to lose him because there's halacha. In this case, the Chachamim forces the owner to set him free. Of course, the eved has to write a document committing himself to half his value, that he owes the owner half his value. Of course, he deserves that, but in order to facilitate marriage and to accommodate the eved's needs, we force the owner to let him go, rather than hold him in limbo and be unable to marry anybody. So what do you do to outsmart the system, to circumvent the system? Azal, he went a knai l'bnei kotam. He took this eved and he was makna. He transferred him to his young boy, knowing that the Chachamim would not enforce this halach on a cotton. We don't get involved in, we don't force katanim to adhere to these halachas. This is his way of sort of shortcutting the system. This way he knows that the eved will remain his. Sholcha Rav Yosef Breder Rava. So Rav Yosef, the son of Rava, sent this question. Okay, Rav Papa, what do I do? Sholcha Rav Papa responds, give him back. Let him get what he deserves. Kasher asa, kenya asa loy, gmulo yoshev leberoshei. He acted inappropriately. He outsmarted the system. He should get it. We should respond in kind. So he says like this: Anan, we know kimlam beinuka. We know that kids are attracted to coins, to money. The makarva daitel gabizuze. Right, the kid can be easily bought off with a couple of coins. Muknil apotropos. This is what we're going to do. We're going to appoint an administrator to look after the value of the evet to ensure that the transaction is done properly. Zuzi. And we get the evet to jingle some coins. Zuzi. To jingle some coins in front of his young master and convince him to let him go. Look, a good deal. Got a few dollars. Let me go, right? And now the apotropos, the administrator, can go ahead and write a shtar shichra and give it to the Eved, write on the name of the owner of the katan. Continues the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a brayse, ha'emer, if a slave master writes in a document the following: Osisi ploini avdi ben chayrin, I have already released my Eved. He became a ben chayrin. Or he writes as follows: Osoi ben chayrin. Or he writes Harehu ben chayrin. In any of these three instances, what is the halacha? Harehu ben chayrin. The Eved is now free to go, because all these l'shoinais indicate freedom. I am setting him free. Either asisi or asoy or harehu ben chayrin. Either way, this shtar is a release document. Go free. But if he writes esenu ben chayrin, I am going to make him a ben chayrin. So now it's sort of future. Rabbi Omer Kana, that too is effective, because in effect what he's saying is, with this document you are going to go free. So this in effect is a shtar shichrur. No, he doesn't go free, because he's just committing. Look, I'm going to make you free down the road. Not with this document. Rabbi Yehuda, we call him the shtar. Of course, we're speaking that these forms of expression were recorded in a shtar, in a document given to the Eved. Tanu Rabbanan, a similar halacha regarding giving away a field, shtar matana, a gift document. So he writes like this: Nosati soda plainis lepleni. I have given this specific property to this person. Or he writes Nisuna lepleni. I am hereby giving this property to this person. In both cases, we deem it a shtar matana. It's an act of gift giving, harehi shaloi. So he receives that as a gift. But, harehi shaloi. So in all these three cases, right, Nasati or Nesuna or harehi shaloi, in these three cases we say harehi shaloi, then in fact he gets the field as a matana, because all these are an expression of giving. What about etenena leploni? Again, future tense. I am going to give it to him. So here as well, the fellow acquires the field, because what he meant to say is, I'm going to give it with this document. It doesn't work. Of course, all these were in a document. Tanu Rabbanan. So we have a slave owner who declares, look, I have turned my slave into a free man. I no longer want him. He's gone. He's out of my possession. And the slave disagrees. Says, no, what are you talking about? I don't recall you setting me free. What is the halacha? So over here we say that the owner is in the right, because the Eved didn't necessarily have to know that he was being set free. The owner could have set him free through using a third party, through an agent. He could have taken a shtar shichr and given it to a friend, with the idea of being zeiche for the Eved. Zochen the Adam shalai b'fanav. Interesting, Tosfos says that the lashon chashinan, which typically indicates uncertainty, here it's vadai. So the owner has a right to say, I released him. You don't know about it? You don't have to know about it. But if he says, Kasafte v'nasate loy, I wrote up a document and I gave it to the Eved, and the Eved denies, V'oimer loy kosavli, v'loy nasali, I never got it from him. The Eved is in the right. Why? Haydaz baldin? When a litigant admits to something, Kamei Eidim Dami, he has the power of 100 Eidim. If he claims that he was never set free, then we accept it as fact. The same idea regarding giving a field. He says, look, I gave this field to that person. And he says, I never got it. Here as well. We say, well, he could have given it through a different party. And that's how he gave it to him. But if he says, he says, I wrote a star and I gave it to you. The fellow denies it, I never got it from you. Once again, it's Kimei Idim Dami, and he's right. So this case, when they're contesting, he says, I gave it. He said, I never got it. I don't have to look after this field. It's not mine. Who gets a right to the fruit that grows in that field? Rav Chisda Amar Noisen Eichel Peres. It belongs to the former owner, because it's been proven that it's still his. So if he has a change of heart, he wants to take back the field, Gesundheit, go eat the pears. V'Rabba Amar Mishalshin is peres. Mishalshin is a lotion of shlish. We have to give it to a third party for safekeeping, since we're not sure who it belongs to. There really isn't much of a machlekes here between Rav Chisda, who says it goes to the Noisein, and Rabba says that it's held, on account, in trust. Haba Abba, Haba Bra. You see, if the father is around, meaning the actual recipient is here, the alleged recipient. So we have Reuven, who claims to have given the field to Shimon, and Shimon is around and denies having accepted the field, and it goes back to Reuven and the Peres as well. But let's say Shimon, the father, the alleged recipient, is no longer alive, and the son, Levi, is now here, claiming never to have gotten the field, and it's not an absolute fact. Perhaps we'll discover that Reuven gave Shimon, the father, the matana when Levi wasn't around, or Levi was unaware of the actual gift. So then there's a certain element of uncertainty, and we leave the Peres in trust until we verify, until Elyonavi comes and verifies the facts. Continues the Mishnah. Eved she'asoi Rabbi apoitaki la'achirim. So Reuven borrowed money from Shimon. Reuven happens to be a slave owner, and he designated that slave as an apoiteki. Apoiteki stands for apoy. On this teikoi should the loan be designated. It's sort of like a collateral which was designated as a backup for the loan. So this Eved is now committed to the loan, so to speak. By default, then you take the Eved. V'shicheroi. And he goes and releases the Eved. Sets him free. Shur sadin. So according to the actual, din, Eina Eved chayv klum. The Eved is totally not responsible for any compensation here. He's free to go. But in order to, for the betterment of the community, the Gemara will explain, by the way, the whole Mishnah from beginning to end. So strictly halachically speaking, literally the Eved is totally off the hook. But Chachamim made a takana, and therefore koifines rabbi, we force the master to free the Eved now. The koisev shtar al damav, and the Eved turns around and has to write an IOU for the value of the for his value, to compensate the owner who now had to release him. Rabban Shimon Gamliel Omer, no, ain't a koisev. You know who has to write the IOU? Not the Eved. He's totally unresponsible. Al-Meshachra, the one who releases him. Now the Gemara will explain the whole Mishnah. So, the first fact is, there was a loan. Reuven borrowed money from Shimon. Reuven had an Eved, and he designated that Eved as an apoiteki, as a backup for that loan. And somebody released the Eved. Who set him free? Amar Rav, Rabbi Rishon, Reuven, the original owner, set him free. So Shuras Hadin, according to the strict halacha, Eina Eved chayv klum. The Rabbi Sheni, the Eved is totally not committed to this loan. He owes nothing to the new master, meaning to Shimon, the lender, who would like to assume ownership of the Eved upon Reuven's defaulting of that loan. The Eved is free man. Why? Kid the Rava, as Rava tells us, Dama Rava Hegdish Chametz v'Shichrur Mafkiyon midei Shibud. Suppose there's Shibud, there's a lien, there's a commitment. But since it's only a monetary commitment, we have things which are more powerful, which override that Shibud. For instance, Hegdish, Rashi says, instead of an Eved being an apoiteki, he made his shoyer, his bull, an apoiteki, to serve as a guarantor of a loan, right? And he turns around and he's magdish. He makes the animal a korban. The power of hegdish, which talks to the actual essence of the item, that overrides the shibud mamain, the monetary and financial commitment reflected in the apoitiki. So now it becomes hegdish, and there goes the shibud, the malva. The lender has no lien on that animal. Or chametz. A similar example. Let's say a guy lends a Yisrael some money before Pesach, and the Yisrael committed his chametz, was meshabed the chametz as a backup for that loan. Comes Pesach, the power of chametz, of Isra chametz, overrides the concept of shibud. It's considered the Yisrael and becomes asr. And finally, b'shichrur, that's our Mishnah, releasing the Eved, that shichrur overrides any shibud, any apoitiki, which was applied to the Eved. So if Ruvain, the borrower, the leiva, decides to release the Eved, there goes the apoitiki. Shichrur is stronger than the apoitiki. And the lender, Shimon, is stuck without any recourse. So that's the actual halacha. Shuras hadin. Ella, but we're concerned about ibnei tikkun ha'olam. What's the tikkun ha'olam? What's the concern? You know, down the road, when Shimon bumps into the Eved on the street, he's going to turn to him and say, 1 second, you're my slave, you should be my slave. You're really my slave. What are you doing walking around free? I should really assume ownership of you because there was a default on that loan and you were a backup of that loan. And what's going to happen? Well, Rashi says, V'yetzi laz al banav. He's going to spread bad rumors about him, his kids. And so in order to avoid that complication, kaifines Rabbi Shini, v'oisa ben chayr. We tell Shimon, the malva, the potential new master, you know what? Don't chase him down the street. Release him. Acknowledge that he is free to go. Okay, so we get him involved. We get him to cooperate. But why would he? The case of Eved shtar al damav. But the Eved has to cooperate as well. He wants to preserve his good name, protect himself and his family. He has to go ahead and write an IOU for his value to the second master. And this will facilitate the process. So that's the Tanakama's approach. Again, the story was Reuven borrowed from Shimon. Reuven assigned the Eved as the apoitiki, and then he goes and releases the Eved. Truthfully speaking, the Eved is free to go. But it might cause him and his family some harm. And therefore we say, look, let's protect him and his reputation and his good name. We have Shimon, the lender, actually go ahead and write a shtar of acknowledgement. I am releasing this Eved from any commitment, any bondage, any slavery. But the Eved has to show appreciation by committing, writing a shtar on his entire value. I'm committing to pay you back whatever it is that I'm worth. And that addresses our concerns. That's the Tanakam. Rabban Shimon Ben Gamliel Omer, he disagrees on one account, on that last point. Eina Eved Kosev. Why is the Eved obligated here? He has to write nothing. He has to commit himself to nothing. He didn't borrow the money. Ela Meshachar Kosev. Reuven, the one who released him, the one who borrowed the money, he has to go and commit himself in writing to the lender. Look, I'm going to pay you back. You can't just walk away and say, well, the Eved was your only recourse was the Eved. The Eved's gone, I'm putter. No, he has to go and write a shtar that I'm going to pay you back. He does, not the Eved. Eved is not responsible. But what's the machlekes about? When one disrupts, damages his friend's shibud, his friend's lien, such as in this case where the slave owner, instead of following through, allowing the creditor to come collect the Eved, he goes and releases him, which basically causes the malva damage by removing any recourse, any possibility of collecting his chayv. That's the machlekes. What happens to a mazak shibud shechaver kamifliki? The mar savar chayv. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel holds if you cause your friend to lose his shibud, you're chayiv to pay. So Reuben, who was mishachra the Eved, he's responsible. Omar Savar Pata, Tanakama says no. It's not recommended, it's not nice, it's not ethical. But in terms of dinei mamanis, you're not chayiv. So we can't go back to the loiva. And if we want this to happen, if we want the malva to be reasonable, you have to get something in return. So we tell the Eved, look, for your own sake, for your own good, commit yourself to the malva with a star on your value. Itmar nami, we have a machlekes in a Gemara as well. A mazik shibudah shachaveri. Banal machlekes. Banal machlekes. Rabban Shimon Gamliel Rabbanon. So the Gemara elsewhere also concurs with this interpretation. And in fact, machlekes in our Mishnah revolves around this question: a mazik shibudah shachaveri, whether it's chayiv or pater. Okay, let's briefly summarize today's daf. We know that an Eved may not marry a Bas Yisrael. If he does so, in the presence of his master, especially if the master facilitates the marriage, that's a raya that he was already set free beforehand. Same thing would apply if the master actually marries his shifcha, same idea, but in a case where he gives her a shtar, erison, and he says, look, this is going to be your shtar shichra as well, Rebbe says, it works, Rabbanan disagree. If your master puts tefillin on his Eved, that's also a sign of freedom, that he was meshacher him beforehand. If a person instructs his family to be nice to their shifcha, to show appreciation, and she insists on going free, then they're meant to do that. Mitzvah l'kayim divrei hameis. In a case where the master relinquishes his rights, he sort of mafker the Eved or shifcha, and then he passes away. So the Gemara tells us that the Yarshim should write a get shichrur to complete the release process, to address the Isra aspect of the Eved. You have the story of the fellow who gave his half Eved to the Katan to circumvent the halacha, and the Chacham responded by working it out that he should go free. We have a fellow who writes certain languages in a shtar. Some are considered effective l'shoinei, some not. And we concluded with the story of the Eved of the Apoitiki, who was released. Abedin, he's pater, but in order to protect his good name, we do an arrangement where the new master will acknowledge his release in exchange for an IOU. Who writes the IOU? Well, we have two shittas. Either the loiva, because he was mazik the shibud, and he's responsible, or the Eved writes it, because the loiva is not responsible, and that's the machlekes, Tanakama, and Amar Shimon, Ben Gamliel. Hatzlacha Rabba and Besuras Tevis.